Sound the recruiting cannons, and is Alexander Smith the best player on defense? Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team almost every day, sometimes twice a day. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, thank you so much for helping us build this community. We're bringing Cannonell in, been on the show several times, Badger superfan on the Discord, great perspectives. Cannon, we got to do it, man. Let's go.
Fire the recruiting cannons. Another one is headed to Madison on Wisconsin.
So this was a good one. Xavier Lucas, we talked about him a little bit on yesterday's show, committed to the Badgers, 6'1", 190-pound defensive back, high 3-star composite. I think he's a 4-star on Rivals, coming out of American Heritage, Fort Lauderdale, loaded place, offers from Florida State, Iowa, Illinois, Alabama at one point was in on him. I talked about him a lot yesterday. I want to get your take on Lucas.
I think he's a really athletic corner, and that's what we need. We've always had really good, solid football players, but they've never had the athleticism to match up with the teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State. So I think he's a super athletic player. He plays for American Heritage, which is one of the better colleges in Florida. He plays tough competition every day, and I think he will slot in great with our other corners that we have gotten, because I think he's a little bigger than the other two. So he'll be able to play on the outside and hand fight more than those two. So I think he's a perfect addition with the receivers that we already got, with the corners that we already got.
Yeah, and Brian talked about the competition he plays there. Every day he's going up against just really, really incredible high school talent. So yeah, just total thoroughbreds. So he's going to be coming in having practice against that, which is going to give him a step up. The other thing I really like, man, and you hit on it, like big and kind of athletic, bigger corner. If he sticks there, some people still think he might be a safety, but I think they're going to try him at corner. And if he sticks there, you look at what we talked about a little bit, but you look at what Fickell, Tressel, Paul Haynes have done, right? You think of the transfers, like Mack is 6'1", Forkran is 6'1". You think about the safeties that are bigger, like Raphael Dunn is 6'4", Amari Snowden from last year's class is 6'3", right? And you just start Braden Moore 6'2", and you just start going down the list. They're getting like these cornerbacks and these safeties with pterodactyl like frames back there.
They're huge. They're ginormous,
and we just haven't had those dudes. And if you look at the NFL draft, the average NFL cornerback is 71.88 inches tall. I looked at the
around the 6 foot range. Around
6 foot. Right?
You don't see many 5'10" corners in the NFL.
You just don't. And those are the type of players they're bringing in.
Yeah, especially like on the outside. You don't see 5'10" outside corners. Those guys normally on the inside playing slot against the smaller, shiftier guys.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather have Amari Snowden, who's 6'3", going up against a 6'4" receiver than having a 5'10" receiver try to guard, or a 5'10" corner try to guard that receiver, because they have the size to match up with the other person's size.
Well, and again, we beat this drum all the time, but if you're going to beat Ohio State, who always has NFL receivers, you need NFL corners. And what's happened in the past is if you don't have NFL corners, then you have to try to outmaneuver Ohio State, right? And I'm using Ohio State as a placeholder. It could be a Georgia, and Alabama, whoever. You have to try to outmaneuver them then by moving your chess pieces around more efficiently, tricking them, trapping them. But the problem is they have really good coaches. So you don't get to do that against an Ohio State Ryan Day coaching team, because they can now execute you.
Yeah, that was the one Achilles heel of Jim Leonard's teams. Like, he could always outcoach them a lot, and he would be able to put them in great positions, but we never had the athleticism to make up for the small mistakes that our team would make. We could always hold them to lower points, but then again, back to our offense couldn't score that many points. So Jim Leonard's teams, if they scored more than 7 points, they're like, we lost. We gave up the one play we couldn't.
And I still have nightmares. I forget which game against Ohio State it was, but I think due to an injury, Joe Ferguson was playing deep center, basically deep safety against Ohio State on a play. And, before the play, you could tell this is going to be a disaster. And it was like that. It just is what it is. You need athletes on the edges, as Brian always says when he comes on the show. All right. Let's transition off there. Although let's put this tweet up here. This is from Mabry Mettoyer, seeing the news of Xavier Lucas committing. Mettoyer chimes in with, "Yes, sir. Let's go." I love how like into it he is, by the way.
He is anytime a recruit commits, he is on the spot commenting. He's hyped to come here, and I'm happy. I'm happy about that.
And that's what your quarterback should be. I mean, this isn't a quarterback show, but that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be the leaders of the class, the team, the locker room, the culture, everything.
Definitely a leader. He is definitely a leader.
All right, let's shift gears here. So we talked to Xavier Lucas, and this is a great time for him to commit because we're all stuck in cornerbacks on this show. So it's a really perfect time for him. And thank you for that, Xavier. I timed that well. Perfect. Let's talk cornerbacks. Let's talk Alexander Smith because the big question I had leading off is he potentially the star of the defense? What do you think?
Of the corners or the whole defense?
Well, just the whole defense, maybe.
I don't think he is. I think Muma Njongmeta is the centerpiece of our defense. I think he's our best player on defense. He had an amazing year last year. I think he'll back that up with an amazing year this year. I honestly don't even think Alexander Smith is our best corner. I think Matt Tyre, who came from Boston College, is going to be our best corner. He'll be in the slot. But I think he's in terms of skill, probably our best dude there. Not taking a shot at Alexander Smith because he's a dude. He's a dude, but he's had some injury battles that he had to deal with. I haven't been able to see him throughout the course of an entire season. But he'll match up really good, and I like the depth behind him, so he'll be able to play all out, all hard he wants. But like I said, I think Muma is our best player on defense.
That's a hot take. I mean, not with Muma. I think a lot of people would agree with you. They're both Matry. I'm higher on Smith than you are. Now, your point is correct, though. He has to do it for a full year. He missed the first 5 games last year. I think when he got back, you saw our pass defense get better immediately. He's a very well-built 5'11". I think he's really good. I think he's really, really good. And I think he might, to me, and this is different than best player now. Let me rephrase this. Is he more irreplaceable than Muma?
Then if you change it there, then yes. I think he's our cornerback one on the outside. He'll be playing the outside. Like I said, Matar will be in the slot. He'll be we need him to play good because he'll be going up probably against the number 1 guy on the other receiver. And so we need him to play good. He starts to fall off or he gets injured and he goes down, then we start to scramble and we're kind of in a bad position. So irreplaceable, yes. I can agree with that. He's the most irreplaceable.
Yeah, I agree there for sure. Because in that, not just you have Jonas DeCluna, but you don't have a lot of experience behind the boundary cornerbacks on this team, and you have 3-4 pretty good inside linebackers. So just from a depth perspective, Alexander Smith needs to stay healthy this year. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to talk over-unders for this cornerback group, get into the depth chart, talk Holman, talk biggest storyline, a bunch more coming up as we talk cornerbacks for this Badgers team. But first, we want to get into our friends of the show, today's sponsor of the show, eBay Motors. ebaymotors.com is the number 1 place, the best spot to go for all of your car parts, all your purchases. And just like building out a team, you need the right parts, the right pieces, the right fits. They need to stick together correctly. And that's what eBay Motors is here for when it comes to the right parts for your vehicle every time. ebaymotors.com is the right place. And the next time you need parts and accessories, this is where you're going to want to go. Head to eBay Motors with eBay Guaranteed Fit. You get every part that fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to my garage. Look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available on U.S. customers, to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. All right, let's bring Cannon L back in here. Let's keep going. Let's talk cornerbacks. So we talked Alexander Smith. We talked Lucas committing. Let's talk about the depth here. How do you feel about the depth with Holman on the other side and the players behind him?
I am ecstatic with our depth because I am really high on the Grand Valley State transfer, Nazir. I think he could be potentially one of the key pieces. If somebody goes down, he can step up because I think he's been having a great spring. So I think our depth is amazing. I mean, you got Holman and Alexander Smith 1-2. You got DeCluna and I can't remember the other guy who's the opposite of DeCluna. They came in the same year. But there's
Lofi, X Lofi.
I think it was Lofi. But anyway, I think there's a solid 6 guys that I could see step up and play significant amount of snaps. So I think our depth's amazing.
So give me a grade. Give me a grade for this year.
This
and then
year,
we'll get into future grades in a second.
I have our this year's grade at a B. And you said future in a little bit because I'll say mine's a B for here and A for a future. I think our future is amazing. I think some of the guys haven't played as many snaps, but the skill is there. Like you can see the talent. If they can just stay healthy, I could see us going up to an A. But for now, I have it at a B.
I'm going to go B+, and that probably is because I'm higher on Alexander Smith than you are. I don't think Smith is – there's very few shutdown corners, right? That's like a really difficult thing, and Smith's not that. Like he's not a shutdown corner. I think he's in that tier right below it, though, which is going to be like a 3rd, 4th round pick. I think he's in that Nick Nelson tier, which is a really good Big Ten quarterback. He's the 8th best returning cornerback in the Big Ten per Pro Football Focus. I think, and some of that is weighed down by the fact that he didn't play as much as I think he could. He was coming off an injury. I think he's primed for a really good year, and he's going to be a mid-round type NFL draft pick.
I agree with that. The only reason why I'm not as high as him is because he hasn't been able to stay healthy. If he was able to stay healthy, then I would be much more higher. But I'm all about like staying healthy. If staying healthy, you can impact the team more than when you're not healthy. So that's why I'm a little bit less high on him as you. But I agree. I think if he can stay healthy, he'll have a great year this year.
And then I like the top 3. I like Matry a lot in the slot. I like Holman. So I'm going to go B+ this year. Future grade, I think I'm at like an A-. I just love the young talent they're getting. I love if Amari Snowden can stay at corner, and I'm not sure he can yet. I don't know if that's the case. Then it's an A- to me because I love Jace Arnold. I like his speed. Lucas coming in, Emilio Agard coming in. There is a lot of young talent on the boundary coming up in this team. So I'm going to go A- for my future grade, but a lot of that is dependent on if Amari Snowden can be that guy.
I'm an A, even if a Snowden decides not go to A to safety, which I think he needs to. I think he's a little bit stiff. I think he'll need to loosen up a little bit, which I think they can do. But I think Emilio's he'll be a lockdown. I think he'll eventually be a 1st, 2nd round talent that goes to the NFL draft. I like our other guys that are coming in. For me, Snowden, I think he'll make an impact whether he's at corner or at safety. So losing him from a corner to a safety to me is not that big of a deal because I honestly from the beginning I thought he'd be better at safety just because he's so tall and long. But otherwise, I'm so happy. We have so many young, talented players that can step up. They got the skill. They're fast. I have an NA, and I think it's going to stay an NA. I don't think it'll drop.
Oh, I love it. Listen, if they can get cornerbacks to an A with this team, the ceiling becomes very high for the Badgers. The thing with Snowden for me, so I agree with you. I've Justin and Rajiv kind of are there more on the, I think he can be a cornerback. I think he's more of probably a long-term center fielder and like a Tanner McAvoy, some type of like version of that, which is a really good thing. The only downside is it's easier to find safeties and corners. That's why I hope he sticks at corner.
I agree.
Just harder to find those dudes. Give me one underrated or one really interesting storyline from the cornerback spot that you're tracking this year.
I think Nazir will end up going into that backup role and getting a significant. He'll get the 3rd most snaps out of all the corners, besides Matt Tyre. Because I'm not necessarily included. I mean, Matt Tyre is a corner, but I'm not going to include him when I'm talking about the 2 outside corners. But besides Hallman and Smith, I think Nazir will get the 3rd most snaps at corner.
He's a super interesting guy to track. Big body guy. That's a good one. I'm interested. If we're talking maybe an underrated storyline, I like that one. I want to see which of the young cornerbacks, the freshmen, potentially make a big jump and by the end of the year are playing a big role. Whether it's a Jace Arnold, whether it's a Snowden, whether it's a Tacluna. I'm curious which of those guys potentially takes a jump, if any of them. Maybe none of them do. But
I think Tacluna's right now the number 2 on Hallman's side. So I think he could potentially get quite a bit of snaps too. From what I've seen in spring, I don't know if Snowden is quite there yet in terms of his hips. Like I said, he's kind of stiff in terms of, but he's also big and long, so it's harder for him to move from side to side. I think he'll play this year at corner. I just don't know the amount of snaps that he's going to be able to get.
Yeah, I think it's for Snowden. I really think it'd be just a package somewhere, where a team maybe has a really tough. I don't know. Like it's tough.
He'll be in the red zone. He'll probably be in the red zone.
Maybe
he's a tall guy for jump balls. Yeah,
I could see that. Right. But then you think about our safeties, which we're not talking about today, are really deep. And would they just rather use an Austin Brown in that role or a bigger safety that's more physical than Snowden? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see.
It will be.
All right, let's get into some over-unders. The first one we have is total interceptions from this cornerback room. The over-under is 7.5. We had 5 last year.
Since we're talking just strictly corners, I'm going to say under.
What about let's drop it to 6.5.
6.5
is high.
I'm gonna go over. From just corners, I'm gonna go over. I think they'll have 7. I think they'll just barely edge that 6.5 out. If this was the entire DB room, including safeties, I would say I'd smash that over.
Yeah, way over.
Get a lot, but just corners, I think I'm gonna go with the over.
I'm gonna go under. I think our interceptions are gonna come from our safety group more than our corner group. I like our corner group a lot. Like I said, I have it as a B+, but we had 5 last year. I think the way they're going to play defense, they're going to create some havoc, and the safeties are going to kind of be overhanging in that 3-3-5. I think those are the guys who are going to get the bulk of the pick. So I'm going to go under on this one. Let's go over under 5.5 cornerbacks seeing significant reps this year. And significance kind of a gray area, but more than just backup mop-up duty.
Yeah, I say over. I think our cornerback room is going to rotate quite a bit. Even if they take Snowden and not maybe he's not playing at the corner, maybe he'll come give Hunter Waller a breather or something like that. He'll come back and play there. But I think it's over. I think I'm slamming the over on that. I think that there's going to be 6 guys that will get a significant amount of snaps.
All right, let's game plan this out. So obviously Alexander Smith, Hallman, Maitre. I agree with you on Nazir. I think Forkrin's going to play quite a bit. That's 4. Let's see. That's 4. We need to get 2 more.
I think the Cluna.
Yeah, I can see.
Will get a significant amount, and I think Snowden will eventually get a significant amount.
So it's either Snowden or maybe Max Lofi gets in there, but Lofi's been hurt a lot of his career.
He has. I think there's 6 that 100% will get a significant amount of minutes or snaps. That's
a good number. I'm gonna go over as well. I think Snowden's gonna find a way to get reps somewhere, and it wouldn't shock me if the Cluna, as we mentioned, I'm going to go 6 too. And listen, maybe Michael Mack, the transfer from Air Force, is able to come.
That's another thing. If he is able to play right away, then the 6 is over for me. Because Snowden's the kind of the iffy one for me. I'm not 100% sure if he'll be able to get and be ready before the end of the year. But the first 5 I mentioned, I'm sold they'll get a significant amount. And if you add him in, that's 6 for me right there.
Now, just keep in mind, like, this is where it starts to get tough, though, right? Because how many safeties are going to play? You have a Wohler, you have Travion Blaylock, you have Latu. Like, there's a lot of talent in the DB room as a whole. So,
because Mac is one of those. If Mac tempers in, he's one of those guys that I could almost see he competing for this, not just a role, a starting role. Because I think he's a starter caliber cornerback. I mean, he did it at Air Force, and he started there. So he is one. If he's able to transfer here and play right away, he'll be one of our better corners right away.
Yeah, well, and I would say this typically, and this I'm just using a broad statement here. Coaches go out to get transfers to play. They don't go out to get transfers to sit on the bench. That's not 100%, but that's typically how it works. You're getting high school players to develop and transfers to fill gaps. So they got him for a reason. They didn't bring him in for nothing. All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. I'm going to get Cannon's take on a Mordecai question I had that I threw out there. And I'm going to respond to something that I think people are still missing with Tanner Mordecai and what he could do in the Big Ten. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for friends of the show. A quick second to say thank you for tuning in. Really do appreciate y'all. Let's keep it going. Let's bring Cannon back in here. Again, I did a previous show, and I don't fully believe this is going to happen. I just think it's a possibility that Tanner Mordecai could be at the end of the year the best quarterback, or in discussion to be the best quarterback in the Big Ten. It's based on his experience. The Blue Bloods are turning over young talent, and you never know with young talent. I think McCarthy's a better player, for example. I think Tua's probably a better player. Or Talio, sorry, is a better player. But I don't think there's slam dunks. I'm curious, is that outlandish? Because I'm going to put this comment up here. This is from The Last Dragon, who I wonder if you're related to Bo Dragon. He said, I'm going to enter this in the National 2023 Preposterous Statement of the Year contest. I don't think Tanner Mordecai potentially being the best quarterback in the Big Ten is that preposterous.
I don't think it's outrageous. I don't think it's preposterous. I think you have a point in why you think that. I disagree. I think that I think he'll be in the conversation, but I don't think he'll ever be considered the best, because I think, like we talked about earlier before we started the show, he tends to take a lot of chances. So I could see him having 35 touchdowns, but I also see he could throw 10, 15 interceptions, because he likes to sling it around, and that's good. But like I made a comparison of Adrian Martinez. He could sling the ball around. He was always really good, but he ended up always making dumb passes at crucial points. And I could see that happening with Mordecai, him trying to take a chance late in the game when we need him to, get a drive going, and he'll end up throwing an interception. So it's not preposterous, because he's definitely up there, but I just don't see it happening.
So that's actually not that far from where I am. My bigger point is it's very possibly could be in that discussion. If I had to put money on it, I would rather take McCarthy. But the interesting thing is when you look at, and I put this up on the show, when you look at what they both did against TCU, it's not that different. And I want to lead into this next question here, because this is something that I think people keep talking about that I think people are missing the boat on. And Andy, I'm not picking on you for this. But Andy said Mordecai is going to have a rude awakening playing top 20 defenses based on experience. Give me Cade. First of all, like most of the teams Wisconsin's playing in the Big Ten aren't top 20 defenses, right? I mean, I start there. There's
Ohio State,
Iowa,
Iowa, and maybe Illinois, maybe.
But you're also playing
the rest of them. I don't see how they definitely don't have a top 20 defense.
Right, like that's the thing. You're also playing, a Northwestern, a Minnesota, a Nebraska. I mean, I'm just saying, like, not a Purdue. Not every defense you're playing in the Big Ten is the top 20 defense. The other bigger point, though, that I make, and I've said this before, is Tanner Mordecai is not coming to the Big Ten to play these teams with SMU. He's coming to the Big Ten to play these other teams with Wisconsin. So yes, the defenses are better, but his surrounding cast is also better. His coaching talent is better. Like, it's not apples to apples. Yes, I would agree if we said Tanner Mordecai is transferring with the entire roster of SMU to play the Big Ten. I'd say, no, that's not going to go as well. But he gets Braylon Allen and 7 receivers and Jack Nelson and Phil Longo.
Like, and you saw that right away. You saw that right away. When Longo brought him in, they immediately got some extra receivers for him. They said, we're going to get you C.J. Williams. We're going to get you Bryson Green. We're going to get you Pauling. Boom. That's 3. They're loading him around him because they knew that the receivers around him weren't up to par, but they weren't terrible. So if you, like you said, if you brought the SMU roster over, of course he's not going to, because the talent there is, but our talent, Wisconsin's talent is much better than SMU's talent. I mean, if we played SMU last year, I think we beat them by a solid 3 touchdowns. My opinion. I
don't know about that. You remember last year's offense, right?
SMU can't match our size. There's a different things. There's a different level of Division I football. And right. SMU's right here, and Wisconsin's up here. So it's not preposterous. I just don't see it happening.
No, I think that's fair. I wanted to bring this up here because there are a lot of people talking about the Tanner question. This is from Big Apple Bucky. Thank you for the comment. He says, I want to see how well Tanner does against pressure after he gets hit a few times and bounces back to make great throws. I'll feel better about his performance. It's a fair point. The only thing I'd push back again here a little bit is he's done it. He's been playing this is his 6th year. And that's one of the reasons I said there's a chance here for Mordecai. He's had hits. And when I talked to the SMU guy, I talked to one of the media guys, and the first thing he said is he's just a total tough kid. Like, he wants to win above all else, and he'll take punishment. So I'm just not that worried about it. Like, he's been hit. He's been in big games. Played good teams. He's played TCU. To me, it's not that big
I'm
deal.
gonna make the perfect comparison of what
Yeah.
I think Mordecai needs to be for us. If
I'll do
he
it.
can have a year like Max Duggan had for TCU, that's the easiest comparison, because I think they're very similar. They're very similar players. I
Mhm.
think Mordecai is a little bit better of a thrower, and I think Duggan's a little better of a runner. But the comparison right there is really just the same, because they both can run really well. That's one thing I think Mordecai's underrated is his running. He can run the ball. He can scoot, but he can also throw the ball really well. And they compare because Duggan's a tough kid too. If you watch him, he's taken some damage. So I think if Mordecai can have a year that Duggan had, we'll be in for a great year.
Yeah, I think that's a good comp. That's a good one. Last one here is from Jim Gamble. He said, "We saw what crappy weather did to Tagovailoa. How is Mordecai going to handle the crappy weather?" I would say not well. Like every other quarterback. I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to make light of the comment. He's going to struggle more in weather in Wisconsin than Texas. But
And this is where Braylon comes into play.
yeah, exactly.
When he was at SMU, if there was bad weather, he didn't have a top 3 back in college football to lean on. Now, not only does he have one of the best offensive minds in college football, he has one of the best backs in college football to hand the ball to when the weather's bad. So no quarterback's going to play good in bad weather. Same with receivers. None of them are going to be able to make every catch when the ball's wet, when it's super cold. So that's why when you have a good back to hand the ball to, that helps him tremendously.
Yep, I agree with that. And I do get Jim's point. If you had a quarterback that's proven he can maybe be a little more secure with the ball in cold weather, obviously come from Texas to Wisconsin, you're probably more confident a guy like McCarthy, who's been in cold weather situations for a couple of years, is going to handle those better. But I just kind of go back to the idea, and Jim, I think appreciate the comment, by the way. I kind of go back to the idea, just to what you said. Weather's going to equalize quarterback play. If you have a bad weather game, both quarterbacks are going to struggle.
That's why if you play Iowa in a bad weather game, that evens the playing field, because they can't compete with you when you sling the ball around. But when you're forced to run the ball half the time, and that's all they do, it evens out, and they can lean on their defense like they always do to carry them to a win.
Yeah, that's a great one. Iowa becomes like the 85 Bears when the weather turns.
They do. It's so hard to beat them when you can't throw the ball.
That's true. We're going to wrap it up there. Cannon, thank you so much for jumping in. Everybody tuning in, thank you so much. Really do appreciate everybody. We're going to keep this thing going on Wisconsin. Let me know if you're coming around to my idea that Tanner Mordecai could be the best quarterback in the Big Ten.